This is the meeting of the School Board of the School District of Indian River County. We are here in the Joanne Idlett Teacher Education Center at 5700 65th Street, right? Not Avenue. I should know that. We're going to start our meeting. I'm going to invite Mrs. Rosario to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item is to adopt the orders of the day. And in adopting those, I'm going to ask for an amendment to the agenda, and I'm going to add an action item to the agenda to continue the temporary suspension of policy 0169.1, allowing public comment via email. Are there any items that the board wishes to move from consent to action?
No, but I do have a request of the board. I would like to ask that we take a moment of silence and understand the passing of Coach Bill Wilson. Coach Wilson dedicated a lot to our students over the years, and as well as his family. Many family members in his family have also been teachers or worked in our district, and I'd like to just ask that we remember him.
I agree. Thank you. I'm not sure protocol about when we do that, so I'm going to check in with council. Do we do that now or after we adopt the items of the day? Okay, let's adopt and then let's have that moment. Yes, ma'am?
I don't know if this is the time Dr. Moore was going to bring back to us the policy for the intervarsity policy. Is that still on the consent? Are we moving that to an action as well, or are we leaving it as consent?
I think it was just for
It's on
public hearing.
consent here.
On consent, let's move it, yes, then I would recommend we pull that.
Pull it to action.
Call
So
to action. Which number is that?
number 10. So I would like to make a motion to pull consent agenda number 10, letter A, approval to set public hearing date to adopt a revised school board policy, from consent to action.
Okay. Got it. Anything else? Is there a motion to adopt the orders as amended?
Make a motion.
Thank you.
Oh,
Second?
a second, sorry. Taking notes.
It's like I can't do it.
Apologize.
Thank you. Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And there's 3 of us here, so it's 3-0. 3-0, Nancy. Oh, we are, presentations. After a moment of silence, I want to honor and thank you, Mrs. Berenborg, for bringing that forward. It's 6:03. Let's have a moment, well, and 45 seconds, so it's going to be a little longer. A moment of silence in remembrance of Coach Wilson. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to recognize Dr. Moore for presentations this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we continue to strive to return to a sense of normal, presentations are back. And with that, I will turn it over to our Public Information Officer, Ms. Maddox, for this evening's presentations.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. We'd like to start off presentations with a review of the recognitions that took place throughout the district on 9/11. And thanks to Mrs. Rosario, she spoke at our board meeting prior to 9/11 and really reignited the emotion for that day and to share information and recognize that day. Not that we didn't have events planned, but it just, it really reignited everyone's feelings for that day. So thank you, Mrs. Rosario. And here's a video that's just covering the events throughout the district. We hope you enjoy. On the 19th anniversary of September 11th, our district paused to remember the victims and the families impacted by this tragic act of terrorism on our country. Although the students in our schools will only learn about the events of September 11th in history books, we will continue to recognize this day each year throughout our district to keep the memory of the victims alive and highlight a time when our country stood in solidarity in defense of our freedoms. In memory and honor of the victims and their families on September 11th, we will never forget. I know most of us remember exactly where we were on 9/11. I was at Vero Beach High School going from math class to band class. However, the students that we have in our district now are learning about it in history books. So we promise to honor that day and recognize that day and the victims who lost their lives to that tragic event and the families who were left without family members, and to always honor them. Now, our next presentation, we have our new Shining Star Awards that we have been presenting. Starting at the last board meeting, we will be recognizing an individual Shining Star and a school Shining Star at each of our board meetings. And tonight, I have asked our Custodial Services Coordinator, Ann Reben, to be with us. Ann, if you would join me at the podium, please. And I will tell you why Ann is our Shining Star. First of all, because she is the Custodial Services Coordinator in the middle of a pandemic. So, Ann, I don't even have to say any more, really. However, Ann's supervisor, Robert Michael, the director of the physical plant, he reached out to me and he said, I would just like to let you know that Ann completed a very special training, which is the Global Biorisk Advisory Council Fundamentals Training Course with an emphasis on COVID-19. So this was by choice by Ann, this was not required, but it was to better prepare her for this pandemic and other pandemics, God forbid, we do not have to deal with those. However, we thought it was very important to have Ann here tonight because she is one of the many that work behind the scenes. Although this year she has received quite a bit of publicity with her amazing custodial staff, highlighting the cleaning technology that we have in our schools and that's going on throughout our campuses. So tonight we would like to recognize Ann Reben, and Ann, I will give you a moment to speak as soon as I finish jabbering on, for the Shining Star individual. And we have an award for Ann tonight. Congratulations. Along with our Shining Star certificate. So thank you very much for your service, Ann. I'd like to say a few words.
I just want to thank everyone. Yes, it is a hard job, but I got to give it to all the custodians in the district. They work hard, and they deserve, really, the Shining Star. They're the best. So I just want to support everybody and do what we can for the district and our students, so thank you very much.
Thank you. And we will hold pictures until after the next presentation, and then we'll do both pictures at one time. So I'll call you back up. Okay, now for our school Shining Star. I will get to that school in just one moment, but I have to brag on some of our other schools first because they were recognized for their high iReady personalized instruction usage from March to May. And this was calculated by the students who were connected during the first 10 weeks of schools being closed. So that's not an easy feat for the principal to be connecting with families and making sure that, you know, the principals and the teachers are making sure their families are logging on and staying engaged. And so these following schools, they had the most number of students using iReady daily within those 10 weeks. And they are Glendale Elementary School, Dodgertown Elementary School, Rosewood Magnet School, Indian River Academy, Osceola Magnet School, Sebastian Elementary School, Beachland Elementary School, Fellsmere Elementary School, Treasure Coast Elementary School, and Liberty Magnet School. So they are not all here tonight, but let's give them a round of applause, please. And there is one school that currently stands out, and I'm going to ask Dr. Chad Bacon to please join me at the podium. Now, at the beginning of the year, our students take their iReady diagnostic tests, and currently, Osceola Magnet School, they are in first place for diagnostic completion status. In reading, they have 99.23% of students who have completed the diagnostic testing, and in math, they have 95.97% of students who have completed the math diagnostic. So we are recognizing Osceola Magnet School tonight for that achievement. And our new principal, Dr. Chad Bacon, is here to accept the award on behalf of Osceola Magnet. So congratulations. Would you like to share your-
The teachers have been patient with me and diligently forwarding them screenshots of the completion rate. So kudos to them. They earned this award. And the parents supporting their children at home. Again, blessed to be a part of such an amazing program over there, but definitely a team effort. Thank you so much.
Board members and Dr. Moore, if I can ask you, we don't have to gather at the screen tonight, but if you'd like to stand in front. And Ann, can I have you come up, please? Your award. Let's see if we can stand here somehow. Okay. All right, 1, 2, make sure we're smiling, and 3. One more. Okay, thank you very much. Congratulations again, Ann. And Dr. Bacon. I can see it in your eyes. Okay, ready? 1, 2, and 3. Thank you very much. Absolutely. And that is all for our presentations for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Maddox. We are now at the portion of our agenda on citizen input. The public may offer public comments by appearing in person. Such persons will be placed in areas outside the meeting room and invited into the meeting room at the appropriate time while maintaining the CDC requirements of social distancing, which is currently defined as not more than 50 individuals in a group and maintaining a distance of at least 6 feet between each individual. The public may also offer comments by emailing comments to the following address: Citizen Input, September 22nd at indianriverschools.org. All emails must contain the name of the submitter. All emails received by 12 p.m. on September 22nd, 2020 will be provided to all school board members prior to the meeting and will be appended to the meeting minutes. The public is advised that this email address will be used solely for obtaining comments, public comments for the board meeting, and should not be used for other purposes or questions. We, as I understand it, Ms.
We had-
Millman, we do not have any, Dr. Moore?
We have
did you receive any
no
public
one
comments?
submitted to that email address.
Okay, I do not have that. We have a number of in-person public comments, and I am going to invite those people to come up in the order in which I received them and remind folks that Ms. DeGresta will time you. We have 3 minutes per comment. The first person is Nancy, forgive me if I destroy your names. Giacchio. And Ms. Giacchio will be followed by oh dear, Ms. Alexis, I'm so sorry, Kate Oleksick? That.
Okay, good evening. My name is Nancy Giaccio, and I am a recently resigned employee of the Indian River County School District, specifically the Transportation Department, of which I have been employed for the last 6.5 years. On September 11th, 2020, I handed in my resignation letter. It was something that I did not want to do, but I had to because of how it was affecting me and my health. I have never worked anywhere where the environment is so toxic, the stress is so thick, the nepotism, favoritism, and the bullying run rampant. In the last 4 years, from 2016 to the present, under Director of Transportation Jennifer Idolette, we have lost 20-plus employees. Wouldn't you say that there is something wrong here? Supposedly, there have been several investigations regarding the above mentioned, but how is that supposed to have happened when her good friend John Teskey, the assistant superintendent, oh, wait a minute, sorry, the former assistant superintendent, was one of the people supposedly doing the investigation? Under the carpet it went again. When asked about it, we were told it was taken care of, not to our knowledge. I have been trying unsuccessfully to get an appointment with the new superintendent and Mr. Scott Bass to let them know what myself and other drivers have been going through, but to no avail. I did, however, one time talk to Mr. Bass on the phone, telling him a little bit about what I was going through, and he made a statement that still upsets me greatly. The statement was, and I quote, "Well, maybe this isn't the place where you should be working." Really? Not well, Ms. Giaccio? What can I do to try to make this better for you? Let me see if I can schedule an appointment for you to come in. This sounds pretty serious. Nope, nothing, not even close to that. That, in a nutshell, says that we're not that important. Aren't you even the least bit curious as to why these employees are and have left? Have there been any exit interviews? No? Why not? This isn't making you all look very good. We are supposed to be the backbone of this district. Without the drivers, how are the kids going to get to school, after-school athletics, etc.? In closing, I want to ask one more question. Why are you letting all these drivers go without finding out why? You have my resignation with the names and dates of when and why they resigned. Have you made any attempt to get in touch with them? They are not the problem. The problem is still there, and it's just not her, although she is the biggest one. I expect to hear back from you, Mr. Bass and Dr. Moore, about an appointment being made for me to come see you both. Thank you. And a little food for thought. Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Thank you. Ms., I'm sorry, Oleksick, who will be followed by Chris Allen.
Greetings. Hope everyone is well. This is just a little something I wrote, but I hope that you consider it wholeheartedly. I would like to ask our school board of directors to appeal her current blanket mandate masking all children all day on behalf of my highly sensitive child and also for all the losing party in this totalitarian force, many whom are silenced and void of a voice to wear a mask, being able to exercise their right to say, "Good for you, not good for me." My eyes are open seeing this is excessive, immoderate, and intemperate. And I ask you to please rescind your decision concerning this perceived public health crisis. Let us not snowball ourselves nor our youth into greater multiplied problems. Children thrive with opportunity to manage themselves and their bodies. So I ask you to please make in-school mask wearing an option for our student body going forward. Thank you. And also, pulmonary hypertension is a type of high blood pressure that affects the arteries in your lungs and the right side of your heart. In one form of pulmonary hypertension called pulmonary arterial hypertension, PAH, blood vessels in your lungs are narrowed, blocked, or destroyed. Does wearing a mask 8 hours a day and during PE class rob you of many deep, beneficial, satisfying breaths that go into the bottom of your lungs. And somebody once said to me in med school, it all starts, rather than begin, with the right arm. And I just feel that this is excessive, immoderate, and intemperate, and very totalitarian, and a form of tyranny. And I know that sounds very extreme, and I'm not trying to be extreme, but I am trying to ask you to appeal your current blanket mandate and make masks optional in school. And also, as maybe a closing side note, I have a very difficult time with excellent hearing and eyesight, understanding people who are wearing a mask even when they're within 6 feet of me. And a teacher's smile may be the only smile some children see all day long. So I just ask that you consider that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Allen? Will be followed by Ms. Jennifer Pippin.
Hi, my name is Chris Allen, and I'm a resident of Indian River County. I was recently at the county commissioners meeting last week, and I heard comments from the health officer, and she seemed pretty much biased towards masks to me. And I mentioned that because I was told that the Department of Health is who advises the school board. So I asked, when is advice considered orders? Because even the CDC only recommends masks, so why not recommend it for children? Because I thought it was, the school board and superintendent who agreed to the plans, not the Department of Health. This person used overall whole numbers instead of weekly. Could it be because up until that date, there was only 2 deaths within 9 days? Does she tell you that as of 9/20, that's when I wrote this, 0 children have died below the age of 24, and only 9 have been hospitalized? And this is with an increase in cases in the county, but she did mention that also. So we don't quarantine for the flu, so why would you quarantine children when someone has COVID-19? Like, if anything, this would cause tensions between parents and disruption of their schoolwork. I recall one instance on Facebook of a child having COVID-19, and a lot of parents commented about being upset that their child was at the school. And, we do have HIPAA regulations. What do you do to make sure that that child's name does not go out, especially when one person gets sick, you get about 20 plus who have to leave the school? It's pretty easy to speculate. When the CDC, she said the CDC is clear on the evidence of importance of wearing masks, but did you know that according to the CDC document, community-related exposures, it says, there's a disclaimer at the bottom that says, while research indicates masks may help those who are infected from spreading the infection, there is less information regarding whether masks offer any protection for the contact exposed to a symptomatic or asymptomatic patient. Therefore, the determination of close contact should be made irrespective of whether the person with COVID-19 or the contact was wearing a mask. So they basically tell you right there that there's not enough research to prove that it works or it doesn't work. But there have been studies since 2009 that say that it basically does nothing. Did you know that the CDC has a study where they studied 455 contacts of an asymptomatic patient, and none of them got coronavirus? And that's with, I think, Cleveland Clinic and, well, I can say for sure the Cleveland Clinic that pushed that on us, saying that, we're the ones driving it. And even Fauci in January said it wasn't driving it. And I just want to close with, I think masks should be a choice at school. The science is not conclusive, so masks should be optional for the children also. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Pippin. Followed by Ms. Debbie Morgan.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer Pippin, and I have 2 children in the Indian River County School District, a 14-year-old girl and 11-year-old son. And when we were talking about masks early on, we were told that they were only going to be on buses, and then things changed, just like medicine, and the policies are constantly changing. We're a month into school now, and we've had several cases. We've had several students quarantine all different schools. And your teachers and staff are masked. Your students are masked. So what does that tell you? Maybe the masks don't work. Maybe they do. We can debate this for 5 more hours. It should be the parent's choice, the teacher's choice, the student's choice whether they wear masks or not. I would never take away the people who are wearing masks today in this room. If they want to wear a mask and they think that's the best choice for their health, they have the right to do so. Same thing with the children or the parents of the children who know that masks do not work for virus protection. We see it in our schools. Look at the nursing homes. They've been locked down since March 13th. All of the staff is masked. They're tested biweekly, and all of the residents are masked. Does anybody know the answer to how many people have died in nursing homes, hospice care, or assisted living facilities since March 13th? The answer is 57 out of 107 of our deaths. What does that tell you? Masks don't work for virus protection. There's many schools in our district that do not have a current mask mandate. Glendale Christian School, Masters Academy, North County Charter. There's also many preschools, Community Preschool, Children's Discovery Center, many of the daycares. When I did call to see about their masking information, they did require some of them in cars while dropping their daycare students off, but not in the daycares, which I find that odd. And also, I'm not sure if everybody here is aware, at the county commissioner meeting, like Chris stated, they also did away with social distancing. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of that, but the 2 things that we know that works, and I think everybody in this room could agree with, hand washing and social distancing. Our county eliminated one of those. Miranda Hawker, the one who spoke in reference to the health department, I don't know how she still has her job. She could not directly answer one question any of the county commissioners asked. You can go back and look at the video on YouTube if you don't believe me. And that is the person who's dictating what we do in our schools. Please, I know we want to do optional masking. It's been brought up. I asked today to definitely please look at optional masking in our schools for our children. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Ms. Morgan, followed by Ms. Jennifer Freeland.
Good evening. I no longer have school-age children, but come here as a concerned parent and a member of this community. I am in support of optional masking for anyone. I come here to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves and who have parents who cannot or will not speak for them. So I speak on behalf of the 34,000 plus children who are victims of child abuse or neglect in the state of Florida. 74% of those are above the age of 6. Those are 2018 statistics. Abuse in the state of Florida means any willful act or threatened act that results in physical, mental, or sexual injury that causes or is likely to cause the child's physical, mental, or emotional health to be significantly impaired. Abuse of a child includes acts of omissions. Florida Department of Children and Families. Parents won't tell you how they've endured abuse, protected their children, and have escaped physical and mental abuse, nor will you hear the children themselves. Why? Because abuse victims rarely tell anyone. Children who are abused are forced to be silent. Coming to school and wearing a mask all day only exasperates the abuse because not only are they silenced at home, they are silenced and controlled at school. The one place students are told they should feel safe. Imagine having a hand put on your mouth while being physically or sexually abused. Imagine being verbally abused and told to shut up, slapped across the face, utterly silenced with nowhere to turn, and then having to wear a mask that mimics the trauma of being held down and mouth covered so you can't scream. We don't want to go there, but for many, this is a reality. With a mask on, you will never see a child's face. You will never see their expression of pain, sadness, or terror. You won't see any busted or swollen lips or bruised cheek that could give a teacher pause and possibly seek help for the child. Imagine trying to protect your child from having their school or their friends know they've escaped their abuser or cannot escape their abuser. Would you be here tonight sharing your story as to why your son or daughter can't wear a mask because it inflicts further emotional trauma? No, you wouldn't. We are moving down a slippery slope, and our children will pay the price. I have experienced psychological, emotional, and verbal abuse from a parent and their spouse, but my abuse didn't start until 2016. The effects are devastating. Wearing a mask stirs up the control and manipulation I have experienced. I am shocked that a mask triggers me, but it does. Imagine how it affects a child. And this is why I stand for those whose voices cannot be heard. A good leader will reassess situations and make adjustments when needed. Any mandate that repeatedly causes a child's physical, mental, or emotional health to be significantly impaired must be rejected. Protect our children and make masks optional. Statistics prove that 99% of people will survive COVID. 100% of abuse and trauma victims never will. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Freeland, followed by Ms. Larissa Pacallan, if I said that right.
Good evening. I would like to give you an update of sorts. Currently, students are struggling on a transitional platform with tech issue after issue, while trying to be in the correct class at the correct time, in a schedule that can only be called a teenage nightmare. And dealing with teachers that do not have the tech needed to continue or the resources. They are frustrated and are shutting down, not to talk about parent frustration at this point either. This is where we talk about teachers. Teachers are going home in tears because they can feel their students' frustration with no way to alleviate it. Watching their students shutting down as they fight through daily and hourly tech issues, leading them to personal devices to try to monitor the chats, admit students into class, and then having an inability to meet one-on-one with students who they know are struggling in a class that is completely overloaded, such as a traditional class with 34 students in total, and 19 of them are ESE with special accommodations. How could any one person give any of these students the help they need? There is absolutely no way for any of these students to obtain the support and the help they need. Speaking of class size, IRCEA was told very specifically in a meeting that if we increase the number of students in our MOU, that for each transitional and virtual classroom, that the district would not do split platforms, where a teacher would have to do virtual and transitional, face-to-face, or any combination thereof. Lie. Currently, there are teachers spread across all three options and combinations trying to work with anywhere from 200 to 356 students at a time. We were told that the flipping back and forth between options would stop. Lie. As of last week, teachers were still getting new students with no warning, not even having a desk in their classroom to seat the student in, as classroom furniture has been removed to make social distancing possible, let alone the amount of backtracking and teaching and procedures that has to be done. We were told by Dr. Moore that he would empty the county offices to cover classes and/or duties. Lie. Currently, teachers are working a duty post every morning, every afternoon, during their lunches, and being asked to cover classrooms with no substitutes during their planning and lunching, or to take students from another class into their class for a teacher who may or may not be gone because of COVID. This is a great way to contain an outbreak, don't you think? In fact, we have more coaches on campus now than we have ever had, per Dr. Moore, but per Dr. Moore's directive, they cannot be used to cover classrooms or have any duties. Today was the first time we have seen a single county office employee in our world except to do highly disruptive walkthroughs, even though we have certified teachers assigned to the county office that could do this job. Teachers were told that they would be kept safe and would be notified if a teacher in their class or a student in their class were being quarantined for symptoms or a positive test. Lie. This has not been done equitably, and in some cases, it is only at the IRC's urging that it's done at all. We have been told over and over to trust, help us get the millage, stand with us. We honor teachers, we want to make teachers a priority. That teachers' working environment is students' learning environment. Stand together with us and trust us, and we have your back. Lie. I refuse to stop. As of now, teachers and support staff are shouldering the weight of this pandemic alone, uninformed, scared for their students, themselves, their families, and yes, in some cases, their job. That teachers have no idea, I'm not stopping. Teachers have no idea, have me removed. Teachers have no idea what is going on, what's going to happen to them, or to them as we transition from multiple teaching options. They have no idea what's going to happen with their accommodations as of October 1st. As of
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
yesterday,
call
we had
you
been
out of
promised that we would be
'Cause I can't
making the
allow it for
teacher's
one
salary
person and not allow
whole.
it for
As of
everybody.
yesterday, we currently have no plan to make teacher salaries whole or equitable, leaving nothing but
Okay, I'm gonna have
scraps for
to-
the veteran teachers who are doing the work for you.
Direct us to turn off. We can't do it. We're not allowed to do that. Because each person is individually given 3 minutes, and we can't, the rules state that we can't allow other people to continually turn over their time to others. It's board policy. Ms. McCallum. Can I invite you to come to the microphone, because otherwise people watching won't be able to hear you.
This product is an ear loop mask. This product is not a respirator. It will not provide any protection from COVID-19 or other viruses or contaminants. It's mentioned on every box with the masks. Not intended to prevent or eliminate exposure to any disease, infections, or communicable disease, marked on every cloth mask label given in school. I know it's been told that children should wear face covering when social distancing is not possible. But in the reality, in most of the schools in Indian River County, children being masked all day long with the same mask on and have just a few minutes break to take a mask off and breathe free. Children are being masked all day in classrooms, even outdoor recess and PE. When doctors prescribe medication, they look at the risk associated with the medications. Sometimes the risk overweighs the benefits. As far as the mask, the risks are much higher than benefits, and the bacteria and germs growing in them can cause skin irritation, headaches, hypoxia, lower blood oxygen levels, which can weaken the immune system, bad bacteria grown in the mouth that can also affect dental health, other disease associated with bacterial inflammation, and even bacterial pneumonia. A German children's charity has commissioned a laboratory to examine commercially available masks. The face mask was previously worn for a child in school for 8 hours. Examination findings: detection of 82 bacterial colonies and 4 mold colonies. If you do not want to believe Germany, we can do our own laboratory test in Indian River County and see how it will turn out. In the reality, children wear 1-2 masks all day long and breathe their own bacteria. This is not safe. Children will get most likely seriously sick with the masks, but not with the COVID-19. And we also know that children are extremely unlikely to get seriously ill or die from COVID-19 infections. And we are not sure if asymptomatic children can even transmit the virus, because if you are symptomatic, you are not sick. It is obviously seen that masks do nothing but creating and spreading germs and viruses even more, affecting our children's health, psychology, and learning. The benefits of wearing masks for children at schools are very low, but the risks are extremely high. Flu season is approaching. We need to support our children's immune system. Do not make it weak. Because in this case, we will have a real pandemic, and we will really in trouble with our children's health. To maintain social distancing and face covering in schools is abuse over our children. Children is our future. We don't want to ruin their health because of our negligence. We want to see our next generation physically and mentally healthy. I respect those who want their kids to wear a mask at school, but I want it to be optional, because no one child should be forced to wear a mask.
Thank you. Ms. Carrie Wilson, followed by, I'm afraid I'm not going to do justice to this name, Sarat Zhang.
All right, my name is Carrie Wilson. You guys probably recognize my name. I just want to say the longer the mask is left on, the more problems start to arise. And there was a peer-reviewed study with people wearing N95 masks, and 70% of the participants showed significant reduction in partial pressure oxygen. This reflects how well oxygen is able to move from the lungs to the blood, and it's usually altered by severe illness. But in this case, it's being reduced by suffocating one's face with a mask. It's dangerous and a major component of hypoxic respiratory failure, and we can no longer overlook that this is happening. Your fact-checking is scarce and negligent, and the data is out there, and if you care to look at it. It seems like the ability to analyze and respect scientific data has been replaced by bandwagoning and agendas that in no way serve the public except to immerse them in fear and instill false sense of security in something that has not only been proven inefficient, but it's actually outright dangerous to your health. Can the school board tell me who their insurance carrier is? My son now wears a shield, and he eats it all day. Nobody stops him from eating it. He comes home like this every day with a new shield because he can't wear a mask because he's autistic. Tomorrow, I will start the investigation on who your school board carrier is because you are illegally practicing medicine by telling my child they have to wear a face covering. Then I want to know who to go after when my children are harmed by the effects of this. I want to know who to put on the claim when I send it in for practicing medicine without a license. As a parent, when I fill out forms in any medical facility, I have to give consent for treatment. I haven't done that with the school board, which means you're practicing medicine without a license. I don't want my children masked. I want it optional.
Thank you. Mr. or Ms. Zhang? Ms. Ruth Kovleski, followed by Ms. Karen Rutledge.
Good evening. My name is Ruth Kovleski, and I'm a member of the Indian River Freedom Coalition. Our grassroots groups represent 700 members, most of whom have school children and grandchildren attending in our school district. I'm here to ask you to unmask our school children. According to Florida State Law Statute Title 17, Chapter 252.36, emergency management powers of the governor reads, a state of emergency can be duly proclaimed if the existence of conditions of disaster or extreme peril by epidemic, which are beyond the control of services personnel, equipment, facilities, and require forces of mutual regions to combat. Florida law authorizes governors to declare health emergencies if and only if there is a real or provable threat to overrun local response capabilities. This is exactly what we were told in March, that we needed 2 weeks to flatten the curve to protect our hospitals. No such emergency, as defined, was realized in our county. Hospitals here are near empty, therefore no emergency realized, and no authority exists for state and local government emergency orders. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is a picture that I printed out today from the Department of Health Indian River County dashboard that says, as of today, the 22nd, some 6 months later, that we are at the lowest, absolute lowest, COVID patients in our hospitals since the beginning of the pandemic. Very small here, and I've emailed that to you all. This clearly shows the lowest hospitalizations. The numbers do not support a pandemic nor an epidemic in the county. And the public health officer, Miranda Hawker, clearly stated this at the September 15th County Commission meeting. Watch the video. 3 of the 5 commissioners questioned these numbers. And even as they are today, I would submit to you that with the current numbers, there is still no state of emergency. Therefore, you are free to unmask the children. I've heard kids easily get used to unpleasant things. I've heard it said that kids will be fine if the parents would just calm down and accept it. This is by an official in our county. This reminds me of the photos of children we have seen who are sexually and physically abused. People think they get used to this also, but not without physical and emotional damage. No one has any studies, which is the real issue here, because many believe being mandated to wear a mask, but particularly a child, may cause lifelong physical issues. Know that many of us are praying daily for the teachers and for this board. Let your teachers wear them if you must. Let the children wear them if the parents wish, but we implore you to please allow our children to be unmasked. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Rutledge? And then followed by our last speaker is Dawn Wilkerson.
Good evening, Dr. Moore and fellow school board members. My name is Karen Rutledge, and I'm here tonight basically to just express a few concerns I have and to seek answers to other concerns that I have. First, a little bit about me. I'm a critical care nurse with over 27 years of bedside experience. I'm dual certified, as well as I hold a bachelor's degree in exceptional education, and I have a paralegal degree. So I consider myself pretty well educated. I have been on the front lines of COVID-19 and the fight from the beginning, caring for the most ill in our county. I would say my optics in the matter with regards to this illness differ vastly than anybody else outside of the role of a critical care nurse. I say this because I had to face many things that you will never have to face. We have been called heroes to do a job that we chose to do. I differ in my definition of what a hero definition is. I just consider myself a nurse. Yet despite my education and training, I must admit that I let the media, social media, and the general rumor mill get the best of me. When I say that I understand the fear that teachers and staff have about returning to in-classroom instruction, I mean it. I became overwhelmed with that fear. I spent hours up till 4 o'clock in the morning devising ways to make masks because we were being told, you may not have a mask when you come in to take care of these patients. I resorted to making masks, and fortunately I didn't have to worry about needing those. But anyway, I resorted to all that because of 1, of fear, and 2, of the unknown. Rumors were going around that we may not have enough PPE we needed in order to take care of these patients, and the patients were on our doorstep. I made a promise to my family, my children, my husband, that I would not bring it home. I've seen a lot, and I am forever changed, but in a good way. I am no longer fearful. And why is that? Because 1, time. We know more now than we did 6 months ago, and we are prepared. And number 3, I turned my TV off. So I want to encourage everyone inside the classroom, administrators and parents and students within the district. First, we are doing a good job in this county. I know firsthand. Number 2, be nice to each other, seeing things from other people's perspectives and listening. That's always a good thing. Number 3, we need to reevaluate our plans with regards to masks of our students in this district and handling students who exhibit signs, because we're not following what the symptoms are listed here. I mean, if a kid gets a sniffle, they're in the clinic and then they're quarantined for 14 days. Can I just please finish? Because I have a different perspective and I'm almost done. I promise.
I get it. You can have 2 more sentences. I've got to be fair to everybody in the room.
Literally less than 10 seconds. We need to stop the phone calls. It just causes fear-mongering. Get the information out some other way. And then the information that you guys are getting in order to make your decisions, because that's what you're at the mercy of as other people to make your decisions, the information can be inaccurate. For example.
Thank you. I'm going to have to cut you off
Okay.
as I've cut off others. Thank you for your words. Ms. Wilkerson.
6 months of the front line.
Thank you for that. And I mean it.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for your time and consideration tonight. I'm here to ask you to please make masks optional and allow parents to make this decision for their children. Within minutes of putting on a mask, dangerous effects begin to set in. Children report dizziness, headaches, shortness of breath, and difficulty in comprehending others, just to name a few. The longer masks are worn, the more devastating their effects can be. What's alarming is that many schools are mandating children to wear masks for hours a day in order to be accepted back into our classrooms. There is much confusion on mask effectiveness, including data to show their dangers as well. Why on earth would we allow our county to put our children in harm's way by restricting their breathing for hours a day just to be able to get an education? The very heart of science is having the capacity to check our emotions and biases at the door and to look at the data objectively. The British Medical Journal did a study published in 2015 to compare the results of cloth masks to medical masks in healthcare workers in 15 hospitals. The result was the rates of all infection outcomes were the highest in the cloth mask group. It was actually 13 times more likely. Penetration of cloth masks by particles was 97%, and medical masks 44%. Medical masks didn't do well, but cloth masks perform horrendously. The conclusion is the moisture retention, the reuse of the cloth masks, and poor filtration may result in the increased risk of infection. As a precautionary measure, cloth masks should not be recommended. This also isn't just a physical, but a mental issue too. In developing children, this is an absolutely critical time for them to be able to observe and see and read the faces of their peers as part of their mental and social development. Researchers at the University of Oxford have already noted a rise in childhood mental health issues resulting from the lockdown, and the full toll of COVID on children's mental health won't be known for years. It is up to us to help put an end to these issues for our children's sake. Data published in the Canadian Mental Association Journal has already demonstrated massive increases in childhood stress disorders and depression caused by such dramatic changes in their daily social interactions. Just yesterday, a teacher friend of mine in this district told me, and I quote, "I've noticed that the kids don't speak as much. They don't say hello in the hallways. They can't see smiles. Humor is hard without the facial expressions, so teaching is less fun." And as a teacher, when he's not able to have fun and get that across to his students and teach them effectively, our students are at risk. There's a lot of psychological aspects to masking also. Our teachers.
Thank you. I'm going to invite you to finish up the next
Yeah.
two sentences, please.
Yeah. I also have other teachers I know that are hoping that masks will be optional as well. Thank you so much for your consideration. We really do appreciate all you guys do for us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who came out tonight. We appreciate your input. We're going to move on to adoption of.
Dr. Schiff.
Did you want to address something?
Yeah, I do. Those of you that weren't here for our afternoon meeting, I did ask for the superintendent to please survey parents to get their input, because we haven't done that, and we need parents' input. So I encourage you to make sure that parents do fill out the survey that's going to go out, asking about masks, whether or not they should be mandatory, optional, or we do away with them. I do share some concerns that I heard, and Karen, I would like your information. Karen, I would like your information after, if you don't mind, what you were going to say.
It's on the form.
Okay, it's on the form? Okay.
Should be.
Thank you.
If you meet her contact information or
No,
the information she
no,
read?
the information she wanted to read.
Oh.
She
I
could
would like
email that to you?
Yes,
Yeah.
feel free to email me. Okay, thank you. There were a couple other things that came up that I wanted to address. I heard, let me start at the top. I heard about survey exit interviews and survey of drivers, or have we done a survey of drivers or exit interviews for bus drivers have left?
Can I add to that, just to follow up, agreeing with what you said, because at our last meeting, I asked for Dr. Moore to look into getting us the regular reports on exit interviews.
Yeah, I don't think we
So-
should be reading every one of them. I'd just like to know if those were done and conducted.
Through the chair, in looking at the process, it is still a practice that is being implemented. I feel like this is too far. As I look at the process, there is an opportunity to refine the form in order to ensure that we're gleaning the information that we truly want to learn, to evaluate where we need to shift or modify practice. But the answer to the question is yes.
Okay. The next question I have is about PE classes. I have read in the CDC recommendations that they recommend not wearing masks during PE and during running and that sort of thing. Is that going on in our school districts where they're wearing masks during PE? I'm asking Dr. Moore, please. Sorry.
Through the chair, we have communicated that while you're outside and when social distancing inside and outside of the classroom is available, then that is the practice in which we should follow.
Because if we've said that we're following CDC guidelines throughout all this, then why aren't we? And if that's the case, and if you've said that, then I would suggest to parents, if that's happening in your school, contact your principal.
And Through the chair, just as we continue to problem solve and look at the reality when we see it, there are parents saying or informing their children not to take off the mask, even though that is an option. So it is something that we look at. I agree that we've created a condition where we are more flexible than most districts in terms of not mandating a mask at all times, because that is not the reality, but ensuring that we're providing opportunities to create social distancing within our schools. We still have that. And then allowing students not to wear the mask, and then being intentional of reinforcing that information at our school sites to maximize that opportunity.
Right, Dr. Moore, but it's different when a parent is telling their child to wear the mask, and it's different when a teacher is saying to wear
Correct.
the mask. So if we're saying that our PE teachers are not going to ask children to wear masks when they're running outdoors,
Correct.
then we need to stick to it. If that,
I'm sorry, we can't, we don't go back and forth in the meeting. It's for the business of the district. So we appreciate your comments, but this is
Right.
actually the meeting where we discuss.
So what my point is if a parent is saying that's happening, I'm speaking for you, okay? If a parent is saying that's happening, their right then is to call the principal and to say, I'm concerned about what's happening in PE class. My child is coming home saying that they're being required to wear a mask when they're running.
Through the chair, let me provide above and beyond information. Your first response is always going to be the principal. In addition to that, we have a Office of Advocacy under the leadership of Mr. Seymour. That is, information is on our webpage to follow up as well. And as we receive that information, whether it be me through email or another team member, we will follow up in a very, very effective and efficient way in order to ensure we're not creating problems for ourselves.
Okay. The other comment that I want to address is when Mrs. Freeland was talking about teachers that don't have technology available. I have specifically asked about that. You have given me an update this week about technology for teachers.
And through the chair, we are continuing to push and clean information, as we discussed in our update, to our high schools, providing devices to students on a one-to-one initiative so they have those devices when they need them. And this is a very, very critical and comprehensive plan in order to ensure we're maximizing the technology that we have. As I mentioned yesterday, we are pushing those devices to our high school students to ensure they have the class sets available or enough to offset when students don't have the one-on-one divide, and then working through with our techs to solve any problems that become available to us.
Okay, and then the last comment I want to address is the mental health studies. You know, we have looked at this a lot in the last 6 months, is mental health for our kids. We have expanded on support for kids. We have added counselors, we've added social workers or people that are working with mental health issues. Have we looked at studies of mental health? And I know this is a pandemic and this is new and different, but have we looked at anything that's out there on mental health for children wearing masks?
Through the chair, we have looked at research and the impacts of a pandemic, some of the information shared as it relates to how it would feel to wear a mask. I can connect and validate that information. It is true or could have that impact. I think we have been extremely intentional of evaluating each and every single child reality upon reentering and ensuring that we're providing those supports to them when we identify issues or concerns. And the truth of the reality is, this is not an easy situation, nor is it a situation in which there is a playbook available. And I truly and honestly thank the speakers for coming out and receive all of your information with an open heart and an open mind. As Board Member Berenborg said, this is information that we're looking at. And this is an opportunity for us to continue to evaluate where we are within this particular reality, look at the variables that have produced this particular reality, and bring information back to the board as it relates to what we do moving forward based on a deep understanding as to what the research says. So we are making a decision that is in the best interest of all children. And it is not an easy decision to make. It is not a simple decision to make. It's not a decision in which you go with what everyone says, because it is very split. And this is a complex issue. But by no means are we saying we're running down this path, this is the path that we're taking, and if you don't like it, oh well. That's not the structure of how we're designed or how this team thinks.
So, Dr. Moore, then I would ask that you could maybe also research what other counties have dismissed masks. Are there any others in Florida, at least? I'd just like to know that.
Through the chair, I want to say I don't think that there is, but I need to collect that information.
Right. I think we need as much information as possible, because we did have a board member that said they want to bring it as an action item. So I think we do need as much information as we can to make an informed decision. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Rosario?
I would like to ask Mrs. Friedland, though you cannot answer me here, and can you email us your complete speech and all those? You mentioned so many different things that it's very difficult for me right now to touch on every single thing, but I want you to know that I will sit down with Dr. Moore and we will go through each and every item. That will be my promise to you. With regard to the mask wearing, I'd like to kind of reiterate the fact that part of the, Dr. Moore, please correct me if I am wrong, if I make a mistake here. Part of the plan for wearing the masks was, or rather the mandate, the expectation to wear the masks were only when social distancing was not able to occur in the schools. So if you could not social distance in a classroom, then you needed to wear the mask. If you could not social distance in the hallway, you needed to wear a mask. If you cannot social distance wherever you are, you need to wear a mask. But if you are social distancing, then the masks can come off.
Through the chair, yes. And as we collected information after the first week as well as the second week of school regarding where we were, surveys going home to parents, we defined opportunities to be more intentional of creating a safe space for students to take a mask break, giving students the authority to ask for a mask break. And having to wear a mask all day is extremely, extremely difficult to do. So pushing information to principals to say, let's make sure that we're being intentional in providing those opportunities for students. We're empowering them with the opportunity to say, hey, I used to ask for a bathroom pass, now I'm going to ask for a mask pass, or there's a safe space within my classroom where I know I can go stand, I am 6 feet apart, and I'm free to take that mask break. So that's just an example of our response or learning through this complex situation.
Likewise, there was and it's not a secret, I have made it very clear that even from the beginning, I personally had concerns about specifically elementary school students wearing masks all day long. That is not a secret, but one of the things that I do explicitly remember is the ability that schools would have extra plastic shields, so that if a student was not comfortable wearing a mask for some emotional reason, physical reason, that also would be an option for them. So we're not just limiting them to a face mask that's covering, that they could have that option as well. So I just want to clarify and make public that we have made those. And as you just mentioned, the flexibility of working with parents of students who have had trauma in their past where they literally cannot
Through the chair, that's
have
correct.
the mask on, I mean, quite literally, physically, that we have instructed our principal, I just want to make sure we've instructed our principals and our assistant principals to allow for accommodations for students who are in those situations. One of the things that we need to do, Dr. Moore, is really follow up with principals and assistant principals. We need to make sure that the message is going out, not just to them, but to every teacher and athletic director, because really there comes a point where we need to use common sense, and sometimes common sense is just not common. So if we need to reiterate what those accommodations should be, if we need to reiterate what the mask, what the plan is for masks and some of the other options, please let's do that. Until we get the survey that you're going to put out and move in a different direction, let's get that out.
Through the chair, we, as you said, we're collecting that information, all continuing to work and support our principals and managing very, very complex situations where the environment is changing. So I think we've been clear in defining what those expectations are. But each and every single experience, based on space, based on the number of students that have returned, it becomes very, very complex and hard to manage. And I say that to say that our principals are doing their very best to problem solve and provide a reality for our students, given the structures that we've laid out in terms of this plan.
I do want to also address some parents and let you know that we hear you. We see you, we hear you. Up until now, in complete transparency, I haven't received any emails, maybe one or two in general about not wearing masks. Even when the plan was being presented to us, there really wasn't a, mine?
I was going to say, I've received them, yeah.
Yeah. You have to check your junk mail, too.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not
Okay,
getting those.
I wouldn't know that, right? So I haven't, apparently my emails are getting kicked back. But that's fine. We'll, thank you for letting me know. My emails are getting kicked back. So I haven't received a lot of emails. Not to say that that's not an issue, but I just haven't, right? Now we'll look into it. I'll make sure that our tech team kind of figures out what that is, and I'll check my junk mail, my junk thing, my spam. But all that to say that we're not a dictatorship here, please. We're not like you have to do it. Our biggest intention was really to follow the guidelines, to follow the suggestions, to do the best that we can to keep everybody safe. That's where our heart has been, to keep everybody as safe as possible. Will we wear masks forever? I don't see that happening. We are certainly moving in the direction now to talk about it. Please, I urge you to watch our earlier meeting today, our superintendent's workshop. We had a lengthy discussion about this topic specifically, and we did talk about Dr. Moore putting out a survey to parents, receiving information from you so that we can move in different directions, remain the same, or what are we going to do? That also includes possibly transitioning, and of course, I don't want to get ahead of him, but Dr. Moore, of what it would look like to transition students from virtual back into brick and mortar. But that was all part of the conversation. All of that to say that was all part of the conversation. So I hear you. I hear you. I can assure you that we will not ignore this issue. We will certainly continue to have these conversations. I want to share a personal story as well. Last week, I took my son to one of the trampoline parks, and unknowingly, they mandated every single person, including parents who were just sitting aside, to wear masks. And I thought that was ridiculous. Your kids are jumping. How could they wear a mask while they're jumping? Well, as I looked in, everybody had the mask on, and everyone was jumping, and everybody had a good time, and it was indoors, and it was crazy. It was almost like I felt like I was in a movie. I could not believe my eyes, but everybody had a good time. I asked my son a million times, "Are you okay? Does it bother you?" And he was like, "No, I'm having a great time," flipping, jumping, and doing everything that he was doing. So it was totally alarming to me, but he was fine. I'm not saying that that's the case for your children in schools or in the gym or outside, because I also think it's ridiculous to have kids who are running track to wear a mask. Outside in this heat is just not something that I would personally recommend. But I say that to you because, you know, I'm a mom too, and I was faced with that situation at a private place. Then, a few days later, he got sick. My son got sick. He literally got really, really, really sick. And I thought it was just a cold, and he had to have a COVID test. And I was a nervous wreck, and this was just last week. And thank God it turned out that he was negative. But I'm not saying that he got it from there either. I'm just saying we're all in this together, right? We're board members. We're here to serve you. We were elected to be your voice, and that's why you elected us. And we need to hear from you, which is what we are doing. I do believe that we all have the best of intentions. We're not here to hurt your children or to make them feel uncomfortable in the classroom. We want them to succeed. So thank you for sharing your voice with us. Thank you for sharing your opinions, your signs. I love them. They're fantastic, very creative. And with that, I will just not say any more.
Okay. Thank you. If I had comments, I think they've been covered. Dr. Moore, did you have any final response? And no is an acceptable answer, too.
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and once again, thank everyone for coming in and sharing what is on your hearts and what is on your minds. And as Ms. Rosario says, our response is to really provide an environment where children can be successful. And this is in no fathom of my imagination. This is something I ever thought that I would be dealing with or having to respond or create systems or structures to solve problems around. But it is the reality in which we find ourselves. And I don't shy away from making difficult decisions. I don't shy away from taking on difficult challenges. Matter of fact, I embrace them full steam ahead. And this is one of those situations. In this particular reality, there are folks on all sides of all issues. And I've always said one size fits none. And in today's reality, 10 different versions fit none, because there's so many different factors in which you have to include in your problem solving in order to create an environment where each and every single family feels safe within the organizational structure that we're trying to design. And I can tell you this, these individuals whose backs are to you, as well as my team and these principals, are in this fight for all the right reasons, and will continue to problem solve, continue to evaluate, and reflect on our actions, and make changes and hard pivots when that need be the case in order to get it right. And that is a commitment that I make to you. It's a commitment I make to those who would speak up to wear a mask, and those who tell their children not to wear their masks. To Ms. Friedland, just in complete transparency, my heart hurts for some of the things that you said. Understand your position, understand the role in which you play. But as I said, never gonna break a promise. Never gonna break a promise. And this is complex, hard work. Thank you for advocating and standing up for your teachers. And I will continue to work with you and your teachers in order to get it right. And that's not to dispute or take away from anything that you say, but it's continue to problem solve, because I will say it again, this is complex, and we are creating systems and structures in order to be in service of our children, and it is not easy. And I know this is a struggle, and I know there were big commitments made. 77% of this community said, I'm going to support recruitment and retention for teachers. I'm going to support 21st century learning, and I'm going to support socially emotional support for our children. And we're going to stand and honor the 77% of folks who did that in terms of that referendum in order to ensure we are maximizing teacher pay. And one of the things I am the most proud of was the work that Mr. Fagan did in scrubbing our budgets to maximize that opportunity to fulfill that promise 1 year before those referendum funds came into existence. In comes COVID. So there are variables in which we need to address, but the commitment will be fulfilled. Thank you.
As we wind up this section, I know one of our board members, I've forgotten which one, asked that you send your comments, and I made an assumption in that you'd send them to all of us, but I want to make that explicit so that we can follow up and so that we can see your specific concerns and each get a direct response from Dr. Moore so that we can round out that conversation. And I'm sorry I had to cut you off. I have to do it. But it doesn't reflect where my heart is for what you're expressing. Also, I just want to communicate to my fellow board members and the public that I sent an email to Dr. Moore asking that the survey be expanded to also include teachers and staff and other stakeholders in the system, so that, and whether it's in the same survey or whether we do separate surveys, but that we hear from staff, that we hear from CWA employees, that we hear from teachers, and we get a really comprehensive picture of how people are feeling about the masks from parents and all the other key stakeholders in the district. So just want to let my fellow board members know that I also requested that.
Can I make a statement about that? I think that's important that we get as much information as possible, especially if we're the first district that might consider doing something like this. You know, if there are no other districts in Florida that are doing this in the nation, you know, this is not just happening to us, it's happening across the world. So if it's something that's of this magnitude that we're looking at, I would like as much data as possible.
And I think that's what we're aiming at. We, again, for those who weren't here, we talked about that in our meeting this afternoon, that one of the things that I think Dr. Moore has been particularly attentive to is surveys, after survey, after survey, after survey, so that we do actually get as much information and are not making decisions for and about people in the absence of their voice. Yeah, and then I'm going to move us on.
I'd like to just caution us as well, Dr. Moore, when you collect some of this information, or your team, that not every district is going to look the same. Everyone, their size is going to look different. Are they in Miami, for example? They're still, I believe, their schools are not even open. No. West Palm Beach has been flip-flopping on several different issues. So everybody is different. Numbers are different. You know, their COVID numbers are different as well. So that's just something that we should look into. So just because another district may or may not be using masks doesn't necessarily mean it would equate to us. So we have to be, as individual as we are in the classroom, we have to be individual in our decision-making here.
Well, and I think
address our
as we gather that data, as we gather it from within the district, and as we look at what other districts are doing, we also look at it in the context of how other districts are experiencing COVID, what their rates are, because getting the data about districts in the absence of knowing how comparable or not comparable they are to us would make a difference.
Absolutely.
Okay. We're going to move on to approving the rest of our agenda. I know many of you don't want to stay for that. You're welcome, of course, to stay, but if you want to go, now's a good time to do that before we move on to the rest of our agenda. I'm so sorry. You're welcome to write to us at any time. We do get, with the exception of, but I can't. This is our business meeting. Sorry. It's our, but feel free to write to us so that we can respond that way.
Thank you for your service.
Okay. I'm going to move on. It's just easier if the disruption is not while we're.
I agree.
Okay, I'm going to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Yeah, we're a little short-staffed. Vote for approving the consent agenda. Call the vote. However you say that, I'm so off put.
Yay.
Yay?
Yes, so 3-0.
Thank you.
However you call
All
it.
in favor?
It
Aye.
just sort of like totally went out of my head. Like, what meeting are we in? What are we doing? Sorry about that. Kind of just lost myself for a minute there. Okay, we moved 2 items to action. The first one was to continue temporary suspension of policy 0169.1, allowing public comment via email. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And I'm sorry, I just realized that I made an error. I didn't call for discussion on consent. So did anybody have discussion on consent? Thank you. Okay. Any discussion on this action item? Mrs. Berenborg, did you have a discussion?
Yes, as far as moving it to action, are we stating then that we want to continue to keep this at least until our next meeting? Is that what we're stating?
We want to keep it in place at least until our next meeting in case there is a gubernatorial directive that would have us stop that. We want to be able to keep it in place, and then depending on what happens, as I understand it, with the gubernatorial directive, we can take it up again at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Rosario, any comments?
I thought we were going to waive it for beyond our next meeting.
At the moment, if we don't take it up at the next meeting, it would stay in place. If we want to revisit it at the next meeting, we can. But it has to do with whatever the governor directs has some impact on how we do this, right?
So the
No?
reason why I asked that is because if we come to our next meeting and we have to, waive it again,
No.
for some reason,
We don't have to.
we don't have to, okay, I'm sorry.
We can choose not to waive it. But if we take no action, it will stay, the waiver will stay in effect. Am I correct, Mrs. DeGresta?
If that's the action of the board this evening, if you could clarify the temporary suspension of your public comment board policy, are you suspending it to the end of the calendar year? Are you suspending it? What is that end date that you're looking at?
That's what I was asking.
That's what I
Okay,
was, that's
so
why
we
I
need
said.
we need to revise the motion then to have an end date, correct?
Or some date that it will come back to the board for further consideration. We can certainly temporarily suspend a policy for a period of time, but it should not be open-ended, never-ending suspension of the policy.
Okay?
May I
So it's
make
my
a-
action item, so do I amend? Okay, so,
You certainly may. The maker of the motion could also amend.
Okay.
Either way.
I can amend, or Mrs. Berenborg, you want to amend?
Yeah, I would like to actually suggest that we keep it in place until the end of October.
Okay.
And then the board in November can take it up and decide whether or not we want to change the policy.
No. When do I talk to that?
Well-
No, because if we do it the end of October, we can't wait until November. It has to be addressed.
So,
So
okay,
if
let
it
me
ends-
rewrite.
like, for example,
Okay.
If it ends on November
There you
27th,
go.
then on November 27th, we have to discuss what we're going to do on that day.
Okay, so let me amend that.
Right?
I'm going to get a date. Hold on. Okay.
What is our second meeting in October?
That's
what she's That's what I'm looking.
October 22nd, I think.
October 27th?
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
25th? Okay.
The 17th is the organizational meeting, of November, and that's our only scheduled meeting, I believe, in November.
Through that,
So maybe
that
through
meeting.
that meeting,
well,
and then we make it through that meeting.
I'll include that as an item on that agenda.
On the organizational agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to amend it, oh, gosh,
Because there's only one meeting in November.
until November, what was it?
17th.
17th. So the amended, so should I read that as an amended motion, or does she need to do that?
At the moment, you just have an amendment. You don't have anyone who has seconded it.
Oh. Then do we have to have the motion to amend? This is where Robert's rules gets really confusing.
And that's what I interpreted.
We need a
Mrs.
motion to
Barrenborn.
amend.
Yes, I made a motion to amend.
Motion to amend.
I made the amendment.
Okay, made the amendment. You need to second.
I will second for purpose of discussion.
Okay. Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just think that going into November is way too long for this. I mean, it's a waiver for public comment. You know, if the governor's executive order comes back and says, everyone back to work, you know, I don't see a need for us to continue it past mid-October or even late October at that point. I just think November is way too late. I don't think we should do it that far. So I would recommend that we do it our second meeting in October, whatever our second meeting in October is, and not go into November at all. We don't know what it's going to look like.
Mrs. Barrenborn?
Yeah, I think the whole comment about this was, it doesn't have anything to do with what the governor says as far as going back to meetings. This has to do with our policy about allowing public input by email. I think, I have no problem, and I think we discussed that this afternoon, that the more that parents can give us input, you know, I think is better. So if we can get input by email, I'm okay with that. I think it should be up to our organizational meeting. I think that's a great time to make that decision as a new board to decide, are we going to continue to do that, or are we going to say to people, no, you need to come in person? But I think that we should not be making that decision in October. I think to be fair to our new fellow board members that are coming on, since they're going to be living with it with us, the three of us, that I think that we should have that discussion in November. So we should keep it as is. Otherwise, it reverts back to our old policy.
Well, I disagree. I disagree.
You think that they should come in person?
I think that we should extend this waiver until our second meeting in October. That's what I think. That's my opinion.
And so you think that...
Not November,
And you think
October.
that board should make the decision on whether or not this
I
continues?
think the current board, whomever is the board, the work of the board doesn't stop just because new board members are coming in. The work of the board should continue. So if we
Okay,
need
well,
to readdress it.
Then I have an opinion.
in
My opinion
October,
is to keep it going.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm actually with Mrs. Barrenborg on this, because I believe, since we don't know, we just don't know what are the health risks moving forward. We don't know if they're going to go up, we don't know if they're going to go down, but what is in our best interest is to get to be able to hear from people, from our constituency as much as possible. I would argue that allowing public comment by email until November, given the uncertainty of the times, I would actually be in favor of that.
It's only 2 meetings.
It's 2 more meetings. I think the distinction of the new board coming on is a convenient time. It's not completely arbitrary. I mean, if we didn't happen to be in an election year, we would have made a different decision, because it wouldn't be about a new board coming on, but I think it's a convenient time to come together as a new board to make the decision going forward.
well, I disagree. I mean, we're going to have a vote anyway, but I disagree. I'm not going to make decisions based on a new board coming in.
Okay.
I'm going to make decisions based on the board that is here in place. The current board works until November, so whatever the date is, and that is going to be
Can you take a
work
vote?
that we do, you know, is not the work that I do, and my decisions are not going to be based on a new board.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I
I'm going to call the
understand,
vote.
though I understand, I just have a
I'm gonna-
different opinion.
I'm going to call the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
It's 2-1. What do we do about a quorum? Does that matter?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
that vote would have been on the amendment to the underlying motion. Now you need to take a vote on the main motion
Right.
as amended.
Oh, okay.
We're
so
just
now-
voting for the amendment.
Okay, so that was a vote for the amendment. Now I'm going to vote on the substance of the amendment, the amendment itself. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
What
So first we had to vote to accept the amendment, then we vote on
Which
the
was the
amendment
waiver
itself.
until November.
Correct.
And this is the waiver in general.
No, first we just accept, so there was a motion, and then Mrs. Berenborg amended it. First, we have to vote to accept the amendment.
Right?
We just did that.
Right.
Now we have to vote on the amendment, on the motion as amended itself.
Okay.
I got that right, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. 2-1 on both, Nancy. Thank you. Okay, that was complicated. Superintendent's report.
We do have the policy item we also moved to action.
Yes.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have, that's right. We have the other policy we moved to action. Mrs. Rosario moved that to action, or Dr. Moore?
Ms. Rosario.
Mrs. Rosario. So I thought, Mrs. Rosario, would you like to speak to your action item?
Madam Chair,
discombobulated
yeah,
today.
this was an item that Dr. Moore brought to us for discussion earlier today. It is it is a revision to the interscholastic athletics policy. We had good discussion about it this morning, and this afternoon, and I believe, Dr. Moore, can I,
Summarize. I can turn it, you can,
oh, you want me to talk about it? No.
no, I would love to.
I would love to have Dr. Moore address the changes, revisions, and whatever he's bringing to us now.
Absolutely, through the chair. Great conversation, and there is an opportunity for us as a system to bring a policy to the board which allows the opportunity for our students to access a EKG as part of their physical conditions, as part of their physical prior to be playing sports in our school system. And as we looked at the process or the policy as it was written, it was determined this afternoon to be a little bit more specific in terms of providing opportunity for our children to opt out and kind of walking away from the language that's currently in there that states mandate. So I am going to remove or modify the language and provide it to the board for perusal as it relates to providing the option for students to participate in that opportunity to have that EKG and then opt out if they have the appropriate reason, whatever that reason may be, as well as looking at funding opportunities. And is there a designated stream that we would feel comfortable as a board putting it into policy to ensure that it is something that would be funded? And I think that was the input provided in that part of the conversation is we want to avoid an opportunity where any one student in our county would opt out for financial reasons. And I think Ms. Berenborg created that is it in my best interest as a parent, but I'm embarrassed to say I can't afford it, and that is a very awkward situation to put anybody in. So me and Mr. Bass already had an initial conversation. I think we'll be able to capture that within the item as well, and looking forward to bringing it back to ensure that we have this in policy and that the board is comfortable with the language that I'm proffering.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? So we're not being asked then to vote on it tonight?
No, I don't-
was going to say, because I don't have anything in front of me, so.
No, through the
Okay.
chair. Being the eager beaver that I was, I thought maybe I could get it done between, but there is some research that I have to do as it relates to the finances, and I would not want to put a policy in front of you that legal hasn't vetted and approved. And since we ran a little bit over, wasn't able to get that done in a way in which I could have that comfort.
Yeah, I think there was also a consideration, not only a parent not necessarily wanting to acknowledge that they might not have the resources at the time, but this issue of whether it's mandated or optional, and then the degree to which parents put it off and put it off.
Right.
And how much attention we focus on it, in what form, so that we make sure that parents are well aware of it and make a conscious choice rather than just don't act.
May I? Yeah. I think that if anyone has not had an opportunity, again, to watch the earlier discussion session that took place today, to please do that. One of the things that, one of the people that we heard from, Mr. Easton, who sits on the board of an organization called Who We Play For, they are located in Brevard County. They have worked diligently with Brevard County Schools and Osceola District, I think.
That's correct.
Is that right? And both Brevard and Osceola have created policy to incorporate heart screenings for their athletes. I think it is certainly something that that I want to make sure that we have here as well. I think every child's life could be, at stake. When a child who wants to join a sports team is asked to take a physical, the physical does not include a look at the heart. So there was a video that we wanted to play tonight, but considering that we are not, we'll save it for the next time. It's a wonderful video, but if anybody has any concerns over what heart screenings look like, please go onto YouTube and look under the videos for Who We Play For. They have great coverage as to what the work that they do in the schools in helping to identify children who have cardiac arrest, believe it or not, and who have been identified and who have had, surgeries and treatment to cure that. And I wanted to thank Who We Play For coming out as well and for supporting the school district in the work, because they're currently in our high schools as it is. This was just a matter of putting forth a policy so that we can make it mandated. I wish we would make it mandated, because giving the option doesn't actually stress how important it is, because my child may be that one child who has cardiac arrest. And if it wasn't mandated, I'm just being hypothetical here, and if it, hopefully, God willing, and if it was mandated, I'd have an opportunity to find that out. If it wasn't mandated and I opted out, that could be my child who may have had cardiac arrest, unfortunately, or cardiac issues. So it's just preventative, and there is going to be a statute, I believe, the governor is putting out sometime next year, I heard, on making this mandatory somehow, but I don't have the details about that, so.
And just to respond to that, as a personal preference, I don't disagree with you. But as a representative, and as you argued earlier about school choice and parental choice, this is not something I can necessarily mandate a parent to do, and want to recognize issues where there may be any number of reasons, as we talked about this afternoon, that a parent chooses not to do that or doesn't have the capacity to do that, and I don't think I can tell them that they must against a religious preference or above a financial consideration. So I don't personally disagree with you. I would like my child to have it, but I don't get to say that for another parent who may have an objection and have a different experience than I have. So
I get it,
just
parents can opt out for religious reasons.
Well, but then that's, anyway.
But I mean, for that, I just don't want it to be, I wish that we didn't have an option for anyone other than, the religious opting out of it. But either way, I do urge board members to go onto Brevard County Schools and Osceola Schools and search for the meetings that had the discussions over this and find out how they came to the decisions of making it mandatory for their district. That might help sway us on our decision in the future.
And since we've been sitting here, just because email notifications pop up, Mr. Easton, who was here today, just sent us an email answering some of the questions we had.
Oh,
that
wonderful.
Came up this afternoon, and I haven't read it because I've been here, but that may be addressed in his email.
Wonderful, I hope so.
Okay, so there's no vote that's pulled from action consent. Now we're up to superintendent's report.
All right, and through the chair, based on the information we've shared, I do not have a presentation tonight.
Okay, and we do not have any items for discussion, school board member matters. Mrs. Berenborg, anything?
Sure, yes. I did attend the 9/11 ceremony. Thank you to Sebastian River High School for inviting all board members. I know it was kind of last minute, but I did drop what I was going to do that day to attend because I felt like it was really an important remembrance. And I know exactly where I was that day and what happened. And our district was uniquely can't say involved, but uniquely touched by what happened that day. And I think it was important that we do remember that for our students, and they understand that's Patriots Day in our country. So I thank the people that were involved in that, and thank you for inviting board members. I'm glad I was able to attend. I wish every board member was able to attend. It did rain on us, which was apropos for that day, but I still think it was wonderful that we were able to at least do some sort of remembrance. I do have several meetings coming up this week: Planning and Zoning, Executive Roundtable, and next week's Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments. And I do want to give you an update at the next meeting on some of the stuff that's going to come up, because it will be pertinent to what we're talking about. One of the items that did come up in my discussion on the Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments meeting last time was about the census report and how we're still low in Vero Beach, and Fellsmere is still pretty low in their response. And I appreciate Mrs. Maddox sending out immediately after that meeting last time when I brought it up, that she sent out a reminder about census, because we need to do our part just like other municipalities are doing. Okay. So just a reminder that it's not a gotcha, it's a count. I use it for genealogy research, and I know it's important. It may not seem important now, but it will be important in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Rosario?
I attended our last Monday, the Value Adjustment Board meeting. There's not much to report back on. It was pretty much just the organizational meeting for the rest of the year. It was quick, but that was last Monday. I'd like to remind everyone that Hispanic Heritage Month is September 15th to October 15th. Woohoo, Hispanics, woohoo. Puerto Rico. Workforce Housing Committee, I want to remind everyone that the Workforce Housing Committee application is still on the website or available for anybody who is interested there. I do want to suggest or ask, there's no deadline. Did we put a deadline for that? We did? Because it's not on the website.
It was September 11th.
Oh.
It was on September 11th, but we are still receiving some applications come
Okay.
in.
Because the actual online
Still there.
thing.
On
it's
the
still
website.
It's on the website, but there's no deadline date on there.
I'll
It
get
doesn't show
with
it.
Ms. Hofer on that.
Okay.
And, but she's still working and out there marketing with people to get their applications in.
Okay. So if anybody is interested, you still have some opportunity to submit your application for that. Celebrate Freedom Week, September 21st through September 25th. I saw that we have that on the website now. Is that, I see you shaking your head, Mr. Meyer. Can we talk a little bit about what that means for us and what we're doing?
Through the chair, we pushed that out, and already some great stuff. I think that it's going out on the social media. If not, I saw emails going around. So it's a great thing to celebrate, and excited to get into the classrooms and watch what the students are doing.
Yeah, I had no idea that we had a week that celebrates our Constitution and our history. I did not know that. So I'm happy that when I received it, you know, that we could get on it and make sure that everybody knows about it. What's interesting is that this follows statute, and the statute actually tells us that to celebrate freedom, there are 3 hours of appropriate instruction that have to take place. And I don't know all the details, but part of that is that each day, each school day, the schools, and my printout actually got a little truncated here, that students need to recite the Declaration of Independence, or a part of the Declaration of Independence, the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because as a homeschool mom, I'm going to have my son do that at home. So we're going to do the same thing and celebrate our freedom and talk about how wonderful it is to be an American. So I'm glad about that. The other thing coming up in the first 2 weeks of October is Disability History and Awareness. 2 weeks, and I received an email from my mom, Stacy Klim. I'm sure it went out to everybody. So I'm happy that she did that because, again, something else I wouldn't have known. There are weeks to celebrate things all over, and it's hard to keep keep up to date with all of these celebrations. So, but at either rate, Dr. Moore is going to present to us as a board what it is that we're doing in our district to celebrate disability history and awareness in our district. So I'm excited to hear about that as well. Lastly, I want to address 9/11. Kristen, thank you so much for putting all of those events together. And thank you to everyone in the district who did something to honor 9/11. I did not make it to that Friday morning raising of the flag. It happens that's the same time and date conflict of my son's science class. And so I couldn't, the co-op depends on me to be there with all these other children waiting. And so it was just, I was torn. I really was torn. But I watched it. I watched the whole thing, and I was super, super proud. I think I even shared it as on social media as a watch, where everybody else watches it as well. So it was beautifully done, and people stood in the rain, I noticed. But I do appreciate the effort. I hope that we can next year plan for more events. I think it would be very prudent of us to plan ahead for that. And I'm glad that there were very few districts that were in the news celebrating the events of 9/11, and we were at the top of the list. So I was proud about that. And I think that's all I have on my list.
That's the thing about going last. Everybody gets to everything first. Yeah, I was going to mention also Disability History and Awareness Weeks. I want to actually publicly thank Mrs. Klim for her advocacy and making sure that we are cognizant of that and that we pay attention to that, because I don't think we have done that justice in past years. And I really appreciate her continued advocacy to make sure that we do our jobs on this one. So that's a public thank you. I too had a conflict on the 9/11 morning as we got late notification, but I did watch a lot of the online stuff and the videos. I spent as most people know, every time I open my mouth, I'm a New Yorker by birth. No? Really? And I spent the first 3.5 decades of my life in New York, and I worked about 10 blocks away from the World Trade Center for most of my professional life. I worked for government in New York City, and would go down there for lunch at various times. I would take walks. I was in Florida by the time that happened, but I know that neighborhood very well. And so I do remember that day, as do most of us. I'm sorry I missed the events. I know that we will continue to honor events that are deserving of recognition and remembrance in our history. I feel like I had something else, but conveniently I've forgotten it. So that means we close sooner. And I think that's it. Superintendent's closing.
Through the chair, a lot of good information, a lot of good dialogue, a lot of follow-up. So looking forward to continuing to pull together some information. I will say this: the next 3 weeks will be very, very difficult as we work to shift or modify our current reality, moving towards a more efficient and effective way of providing education for all children. And as we do that, I would expect opportunities really to problem solve, and being connected and being committed to the problem solving process will ensure at the end of the day we do have a smooth transition. And looking forward to really getting into those numbers as parents declare where they would be. As I said before, really want to get our students back into a level of comfort inside of our schools. And it is a Herculean effort to get it done, and you double or triple that where you're trying to get it done and to meet everyone's needs. But I just think that is, as difficult and as uncomfortable in some cases as it may be, that's just the right thing to do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for a long, but not as long as some that we have, productive day. We got a lot done. We will continue to get a lot more done. Thank you all. I'm adjourning the meeting at 7:50.